Hi everybody, my name is Jeremy Siskind. I'm the author of Solo Standards for Piano, the author of the Jazz Piano Fundamentals series, as well as the author, that was perilous, of this book, Playing Solo Jazz Piano. And if you have worked at all through my Jazz Piano Fundamental series, you'll know that the very first thing, like literally page 1 of the first book from this series, is doing a drone improvisation. Okay, I can prove it to you. Improvisation exercise 1 here is a drone improvisation. So you can see that I think drone improvisations are important. I had a student say something really insightful to me. He was saying that, we were talking about how learning jazz is like learning a language. And he said, drone improvisations are crucial because it's like that time when you're just babbling in a language, when you don't quite know what you're saying yet, but just being able to babble a little bit is useful. I think drone improvisations are incredibly useful for students, for pianists at any level. I love playing a drone improvisation. And so I want to give you 7 tips to do a drone improvisation better. But first, let's talk about what is a drone improvisation. So a drone improvisation is where you automatically fly one of those helicopter things. No, I'm just kidding. That's a different kind of drone. I'm imagining your laughter. Okay. A drone improvisation refers to improvising over a single stable sound. So we're taking off chord changes, we're taking off even tempo, as we'll talk about. And we're just improvising over a single thing. And this gives us a chance to talk about and to focus on some of those non-jazz specific, but generic musical ideas that good improvisers do. Things like playing with a good sound, things like playing in phrases, things like listening to yourself while you improvise. And for some students who have a fear of a wrong note or of sounding stupid when they improvise, drone improvisations are such a great place to start because it's almost impossible to play a wrong note or to do something wrong because it's all about exploration. I should mention, I'm not an expert in this, but certain cultures, including I think most notably Indian cultures, think of drone improvisation as not just an exercise, as something to perform and focus on and include it in performances. And in jazz, we can think of certain pieces like Bill Evans' Piece, where you stay on one chord the whole time, or even something like So What or Impressions as akin to a drone improvisation. So if I were going to do a drone improvisation for you, I'm going to use a low C and G. I make a fifth with C below G. Because, at least to start, it's nice to just do this on the white keys, to do this in C major, and I'm going to improvise using only the white keys. Could I go outside of the diatonic scale? Yeah, possible, but to begin, I like just using the white keys. And all I'm going to do is just make some single note melodies that I like. It's like I'm singing, but I'm using the piano instead of my voice. So I want to share some of the things that are going to make this drone improvisation really useful. And so we're going to go to this camera angle. I've got my drone improv tips. Man, this heater is really an eyesore. Okay, give me a second. I'm going to get it out of here. All right, now I have the perfect scene. Okay, drone improv tips. First one, you probably noticed that to me, breathing is a big part of this. I've had students who call drone improvisation piano yoga because it is a time that you want to relax actively, intentionally at the piano, right? I think many of us, because of years of study and pressure, associate the piano with stress. Drone improvisation can really lead you to feeling, hopefully, some measure of relaxation. And what I try to do is whenever I retake that drone, I try to pair it with a breath. And that helps me slow down a little bit and not force anything, but allow these melodies to come out. I just want to highlight those two words. They're very important to me. One is force, bad. The other is allow, which I think is better. In these drone improvisations, we can experiment with playing things that we allow to come out rather than force out. Whereas when we have a tempo, when we have changes, sometimes you have to force a little bit more. We don't want to, but sometimes that's the reality, right? Okay, second thing, I do hear a lot of students get into a tempo. And in fact, during my beginning, I kind of just started like this, and then I caught myself. And I thought, no, let's leave the tempo. Because remember, we're trying to leave everything that could cause us stress or worry behind. So we're trying to really just luxuriate. Okay, so I would try to stay out of tempo. This is not a swing feel. This is not in any particular feel. This is an open-ended thing. If anything, maybe it's a little new age feeling. You can hear, this isn't on my list, but this is one of the few times where I encourage my students to use a little bit of pedal. You don't have to use a ton of pedal. Don't just stomp on the pedal, but it is kind of nice to add a little bit of wetness, and the pedal gives us some reassurance, right? That even if we lift our fingers, the sound will continue on. So we really don't want this to have any tempo. We want it to feel stretchy, open-ended, whatever adjective you want to choose. Okay. Number 3, trust your ear over your fingers. I said something while I was improvising that I want to highlight and say again. I said something like, I'm singing these lines on the piano. And that's how I think about it. You know, these are things in my inner ear. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I don't have perfect pitch. Doesn't matter. You want to still express the up and down, the quickness or slowness, the kind of arc of your phrase as it comes from your ear. And that takes training. And that requires you to really listen to yourself while you're playing. And listen to your inner ear. And let me just pause on that for a second, because there's 2 ways, I'm sure there's more than 2, of listening. One is responsive, hearing, maybe this note and thinking, ooh, that's pretty dissonant. Let me move it up, or let me move it down. Right? You hear the sound and you identify, ooh, this could use some resolution. But another way of listening is listening to what you're hearing in your head, and then trying to bring it out to the piano. Some of you, I'm sure, might say, I don't hear anything in my head. And that's something that you can develop as you play music more. All right, number 4. I'm doing a lot of talking around these ideas. Number 4, enjoy the space, right? I've already used the words like luxurious and open-ended. I would say in a drone improvisation, you can do as much resting as you do playing. And here's a exercise. If you feel like that's hard for you, which I think it is actually hard for many of us, which is to try not to play at your first impulse. When you have that musical idea, actually pull your hand away. And you can wait until your third impulse to play to actually play your idea. But, this is beautiful, just where it is. We can enjoy the space, become that child who just enjoys sound. Drink it in, breathe it in. I know this is getting real zen and weird. That's okay. Wait for that musical idea to come. Don't play anything you don't really mean. You don't have to. I don't care if you wait around all day. Which brings me to number 5 is don't show off or play anything automatic. I think, and it's natural in a class setting. Some students get in and I say, okay, let's hear a little drone improvisation, and they're playing the really fancy lick that they learned. And that's not the point, right? The point here is exploration. And in that context, we really want to be much more open and not just following our muscle memory, because this is so much about engaging the ear. Okay. Number 6, set a timer. Okay. It's so easy to do this exercise and then feel like, what have I done? Did I do anything? I don't know. A timer gives you a beginning and an end, and you can say, I did that for 5 minutes today. So I highly recommend even 2 minutes at the beginning of your practice session might really help calm you down, get you in a different place, and get some good musical habits in. Now, number 7 is how you get those musical habits in. It is definitely valuable to improvise over a drone with absolutely no agenda at all. To just say, I'm going to make some melodies. I'm going to follow my breathing. These are both actually good points of focus. Make melodies that I like. It's a great point of focus. Follow my breathing, really focus on my breathing. But as I get more and more comfortable with drone improvisation, I really like to have some sort of a goal. What am I going to focus on as I play? Maybe it is having a crescendo and decrescendo in each of my phrases. Maybe it's a type of shape. Maybe I'm going to always make kind of an upside down V shape with my phrases. Maybe I'm going to make a U shape with each of my phrases. Maybe it's that I'm going to add a grace note to each of my phrases. Maybe it's that I'm going to play phrases in pairs. I recently had a YouTube video about this, playing one phrase and repeating it. Maybe I'm going to mix articulation and use some staccato in my phrases. Maybe I'm going to try for bigger intervals and to really expand across the piano. There's a lot of suggestions in my book. And anything that you're working on your jazz tune, so long as it isn't necessarily about the harmony, could be a really great point of focus for your drone improvisation. And it's really it's amazing what you can accomplish in this setting and then bring over to your jazz tunes. One thing that I encourage my students to do, and I'll let you see all seven points here together. But what I encourage them to do is to do maybe, for instance, 3-minute long drone improvisations. And one could be, let's see, bigger intervals. Not seconds and thirds, but I'm going to use a lot of fourths, fifths, and sixths. And then one drone improvisation focused on mixing short and long phrases. So sometimes really short phrases, sometimes really long phrases. We could do a third one is going to be just about deep listening. Am I really doing that responsive listening? Am I hearing how each note sounds against the drum? And then for the last minute or 2 minutes, or however you want to divide it, you could see if you can keep all 3 things in your head. Could I focus on playing with some wider intervals, playing different phrase lengths, and really do that deep listening and try to kind of shuffle around between those 3 ideas in your mind? I feel more relaxed after this video. Don't you feel more relaxed? Just that little bit of breathing, it's really amazing what that can do for our psyche and for our body. So, namaste. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, why don't you say something about breathing in your comment? And if just babbling and getting started with improvisation like that sounds like the right level for you, then check out Jazz Piano Fundamentals, Book 1. It will guide you from those beginnings of just babbling in the language to saying more and more concrete jazz-focused sorts of things. Okay? Enjoy your droning. Have a good one, everybody.